Good morning, Hilton Baptist, and welcome to a new week of devotions. And this week we're starting a new series, and we're going to start it in the Psalms of Ascent. A colleague in a Baptist church in Cape Town shared with me how his church, Sunday by Sunday, are working through a series on the Psalms of Ascent. The Psalms between Psalm 120 and Psalm 134 are known by that name. They are the Psalms of Ascent. As they, that is that church in Cape Town, wait for the epidemic to pass, and while church cannot meet, and in the hope that one day it soon will be able to gather again, they think that this is a really appropriate series. And they're not wrong, because the Psalms of Ascent were written by those pilgrims in Israel who would go up to Jerusalem 3 times a year for the celebrations, for the festivals of worship. And so they would make that journey every year, 3 times a year, to Jerusalem. And they're the Psalms of Ascent because every time you journeyed to Jerusalem, you went up, because Jerusalem was at the highest point in the nation of Israel, and everywhere was up to get to it. In fact, the most common road used was the road from Jericho to Jerusalem. And Jericho is possibly the lowest city in the world. It is below sea level. And so the last part of the journey to Jerusalem was a steep uphill journey with many dangers and many challenges, as the parable of the Good Samaritan tells us. And so this wasn't an easy journey to make. And there were probably many who wondered if it was worth it, if it would be worthwhile to go up to Jerusalem with a young family in tow, or maybe they felt they were getting a bit old for this now, and maybe it was for the younger people to do. But nonetheless, God called them 3 times a year to go to Jerusalem. Firstly, at Passover, to remember God's great redemption, God's great rescue of the people of Israel from Egypt. And then 50 days later at Pentecost, to go and remember God's giving of the law and God's establishing of his covenant with his people at Sinai. And then later on in the year, they would go for the Festival of Tabernacles, where they would remember how God had protected them in the desert for those 40 years. And they would actually put up booths or little tabernacles, little tents where they would stay in for the period of 8 days that they would be in Jerusalem for that festival. I wonder how you are with worship. Sometimes we find it quite a discipline, don't we? And sometimes we struggle and we battle with our self-discipline to keep up the discipline of worship. I think the Psalms of Ascent will help us to keep the discipline going. If the people of Israel would struggle to journey 3 times a year, then we can struggle too, can't we, and overcome, so that we make sure that worship remains a priority for us. Second reason that I've wanted to study these Psalms is that Eugene Peterson has written a great little book called A Long Obedience in the Same Direction, and it's his commentary on these Psalms. And I have so loved that title and so been challenged by it, but somehow never got to reading it. Well, now is the time. In his introduction to this book, he talks about the difference between tourists and pilgrims. And I think it's quite a distinct and important distinction to make as we consider and as we journey in the Psalms of Ascent. Because I think it's easy to say that the Christian faith, the Christian religion, has been tempted and often succumbed to the tourist temptation. We have become tourists when we ought to be pilgrims. So what do we mean by being a tourist? Well, what are tourists like? They are caught up in the worldly pleasures of everything being quick and efficient. When you go on tour somewhere, you've only got a few hours to go around a great magnificent temple or a beautiful art gallery or a wonderful museum, when the truth of the matter is you should be spending days there to discover all the beauty and all the wonderful things that are in there. Often tourists have their attention caught up in the fact that we watch 30-second commercials and have an attention span about as long as that. And we rather watch movies than read the book of something because our attention span has been reduced. That's kind of the way it is in the world today. And so our sense of reality has been reduced. And so our experience of religion is reduced to a visit to an attractive site where we might do if we have adequate leisure time. We go to see a new personality, hear a new truth, get a new experience, someone to expand the humdrum of our lives. We try all sorts of things until something new comes up. We are spiritual tourists. But actually God calls us to be pilgrims. And a pilgrim's a person who spends their life on a journey to God. And the road on which we journey is Jesus Christ. He is the way, He is the truth, He is the life. Hebrews chapter 12 and verse 2 says that we are to fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy set before Him endured the cross. And we are to do so as we run with perseverance the race mapped out for us. And so let's become pilgrims. Let's get on that journey, the journey that Jesus Christ takes us on to God. And let's not be in a hurry. Let's get there in plenty of time, but let's not rush. And when we're there, let's study and learn completely and not be in a hurry to get on to the next big thing. These are the kind of things that we'll learn in the Psalms of Ascent. Look forward to you journeying with me on this journey.